It's rare that you see this much action from the Kansas City Chiefs in free agency, but it's all paying off. How does everyone fit? Matt Derrick's going to give us the lowdown today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back in, everybody. Thanks for making us your first listen. Check out another Locked On show for your next one. Check out the draft content. It's all coming, and it feeds in with everything we're talking about because free agency sets up the draft, and that's the way that it works. We have a great show for you today. Matt Derrick is here from ChiefsDigest.com. It's Wednesday, so that's pretty normal. You all know that. If you don't, then he is our man on the ground, inside the locker room, et cetera, and with the inside ear to the organization itself, and he keeps me calm, and I appreciate that very much. We appreciate you being here as well. We have a ton of content. Matt is at ChiefsDigest.com. Chiefs Digest here on YouTube. 41 is the Mike podcast. Locked On Chiefs as the podcast. Yes, you can find him on all those places and more. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. I have the Athletic Matrix already up for pre-order right now at rogueapc.com. Go get that planned ahead. You'll get the release as soon as it is done and cooked and baked and fully done, and I am working on that as well, so be prepared. Then you can get more content from me over at NFL 33. I'll break down just coming tomorrow all the deals that I think actually fit and the Chiefs need to be watching out for, as well as everything else around the league. And you can find more Chiefs content at RGR Football. We appreciate you guys doing that. We have a lot to talk about because Matt, have been a little bit surprised that we actually have some things to talk about. Day one, Chiefs made moves that have some impact. The level of impact we'll discuss shortly, but how surprised were you that we had multiple things to really discuss and talk about on day one of free agency, and they got active early?
Yeah, a little surprised. Certainly I think the conventional wisdom was that the Chiefs were going to get involved in the left tackle market early. Direction they ended up going might have surprised some people, but that certainly kind of felt like where the momentum was going in maybe the last 12 to 24 hours before free agency began, that Jaylon Moore really kind of popped onto the radar, especially after the Ronnie Stanley signing. But the fact that, hey, the Chiefs to me were able to get kind of maybe a second or a third wave type signing in Elijah Mitchell and get that done. They got their own guys done, which I know was probably a bigger surprise, just leading up into the negotiating window opening with Hollywood and Nick Bolton. But the question really was then just how active would the Chiefs be in this first wave? And, you didn't really get the sense that the Chiefs would, but I think they found some bargains and some good deals along the way.
I think it's really key because, as you said, when you have this much of your own free agent group up for grabs, getting things done like Nick Bolton. I was a little surprised at the size of the contract, but that sets you up for everything else that you have to do by checking off some boxes here and getting yourself to a point where you can draft freely and not by design. I think that's big too. For Bolton in particular, what did you think of the contract? How did it come down? Where are you with what it does to the rest of the roster?
Yeah, I felt like that was the high end of where the Chiefs would go with Bolton. Certainly would they have love to have been able to try and get it done cheaper? Sure. And I know people, have said, hey, maybe the Chiefs should have got it done last fall. Well, it takes two to tango. And Nick Bolton he wanted to play out year 4. He wanted to get a healthy year behind him and see if that could help him. And once again, that's the thing, is that if the player is going to bet on themselves, that can pay off for the player, and it paid off for Nick Bolton. Would the Chiefs have loved to have get him at maybe $12 million per instead of $15 per? Sure. But had he gone to free agency, I'm pretty convinced the Chiefs would have lost him. And I think that it would have been more like a 17 or 18 million per deal. So the fact that Bolton stayed in Kansas City, I think the Chiefs were able to get him at about the best rate that they possibly could. And there's no doubt the Chiefs felt like keeping Nick Bolton was an important signing because Steve Spagnuolo loves Nick Bolton. And I think that's the bottom line for, anyone that's got, concerns or criticisms about this deal. If you trust Steve Spagnuolo trusts Nick Bolton. Therefore, you trust Nick Bolton.
And by getting the Bolton deal done, that sets up what you can do for the rest of it. And I think this is a team that has very big concerns on offense, and I think the fan base has been very focused on the offensive side, but you got to get some work done on defense. And that led to day 2 today, the more recent one here, Christian Fulton, a cornerback that I think we all had our eye on, at least the 4 of us. Me and Dan, you and Nick both kind of singled him out as a guy that could fit in this defense. I had him as a high-end fit coming out in the draft. And I know it was a sluggish start to his career. Texans days were, you can call it whatever you want. but ended last year with the Chargers, made a couple plays, made an interception against this team. And I am convinced that in the Rolodex that is Brett Veach's mind, if you make a big play against the Chiefs, he's going to remember that. What do you think of the signing, and how do you like the fit?
Yeah, I really like the signing because I think it's a tremendous fit. Like you said, I mean, and you think about a Steve Spagnuolo corner, what do they look like? Well, they're long, they're lean. I mean, he may not have the length of some guys. He's probably a little bit more of a Trent McDuffie corner, but he makes up for it with a lot of speed. Most importantly, though, he's physical. He plays against the run well. He does those little things. So to me, he's a classic Dave Merritt, Brett Veach corner. I'll have no doubt that we'll probably hear from them and they'll talk about the fact that, yeah, he was under draft board. I mean, they probably would have taken him if given the opportunity in the right spot. And he seems to have matured. I mean, he really, really had a good year last year. Seemed to be playing within himself and really kind of coming into his own. The rate at which they got him, hey, there are corners going for a lot more than that right now. So to get a guy that I think you view as a starting caliber corner, a guy that can come in and, and be a part of your top 3 rotation, so that because this is where I think that this signing really helps them out, because this gives you 3 corners that you can put out there at the same time with McDuffie, Watson, and Fulton. And you can have McDuffie playing in the slot. That allows Chamari Connor to go back more to a pure safety role. Maybe, but has that flexibility to do what, once again, Dave Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo like to do, which is to mirror on either side, so he can go into the slot if needed. But to me, this really deepens 2 different positions, because now not only do you have Fulton, who's going to be one of your top 3 corners, but now you can move Chamari Connor, just go straight back to being a pure safety. It strengthens both your corner and your safety group. So to me, that's a win-win signing, and I'll be surprised that this one doesn't work out.
Yeah, I would be very, very surprised as well. His play with the Titans, I thought, was a little bit up and down. Like I said, I had to ease into it. I may have said Texans before. Apologies, folks. I get a little carried away with the T words, evidently. But he maxed out at like 803 snaps. It was his second year, right around 600 the other years, right? Yet goes to Chargers last year, 827. He did give up a few more touchdowns. I think that the adjustment to that scheme was maybe not a perfect fit for him, but his skills are here. My question is fitting into the rotation, because I don't see a reason to put Trent McDuffie back in the slot. So is he one of the top 3 talents at this position pretty quickly? Yes, I agree with that. But I don't know that it's a fit specifically in the slot for any of these guys, unless you're willing to move McDuffie. What do you think they should do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, by and large, I think it gives you much more the freedom to put McDuffie on the best receiver. So wherever the receiver is going, McDuffie can go, and you've got the flexibility to move these guys around. So you don't have to be married to side, you don't have to be married to the slot. But I think the Chiefs, and maybe we'll find out differently. Maybe we'll get into the season and they really will feel that this is. That maybe that they can use different guys. Maybe they're not done acquiring players, so maybe they're going to pick up another slot corner that they really like. But right now, if you view Trent McDuffie as your best slot corner, this addition gives you the opportunity to put him in the slot. I mean, Trent McDuffie's still going to be on the field every single snap. He's your best corner. So whether he's on the inside or outside, he's going to be out there. Then it's just a matter of, how you've used Fulton and Watson. And you can, these guys got different skills. They're different styles of corner, different sizes. So you can play matchup a little bit about which one of them has the best strength against the opposition that week. I could certainly see, there being weeks where one of them gets a lot more snaps than the other for just that reason and that purpose. Against teams that got bigger receivers, you're probably going to see more of Jaylon Watson. If you got speedy little guys, you're probably going to see more Christian Fulton. And I'm with you. I mean, I think that this is going to be a better fit scheme-wise for Fulton than he probably played in last year. So, in getting the opportunity to work with Dave Merritt, I just see this just not being anything but really an upward arrow for Fulton from a development standpoint.
Yeah, it's a win-win for both parties here. Hopefully it is for everybody else that's joining this team. Matt's reaction to the signings yesterday and a little bit deeper dive into how they will fit coming up next. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are some of the green flags in a relationship? We often hear about the red flags that you should avoid, but what if we focused on identifying the positive signs in relationships, those green flags? If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them, actively practice them, and even embody the green flag energy yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a relationship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you form relationships that love you back. Therapy is you developing your healthy boundaries and improving your communication skills. It empowers you to set clear expectations and express those needs to other people in your relationships. Therapy provides tools for managing conflict and making sure that your communication strengthens and connections are strengthened rather than breaking them down. BetterHelp makes it easier for you to enjoy online therapy. And with over 30,000 licensed therapists to choose from, if you need to switch therapists, you can do that at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today, and you get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. I'm really excited, Matt, not just for you and Chiefs Digest and everything you're doing over there, but your opinion on these particular signings. We are witnessing the collapse of the current evolution of the San Francisco 49ers, a team that the Chiefs have played twice in Super Bowls. And I think that taking a piece of that is also playing into Brett Veach's playbook. Go get good players from good teams that have had success and know how to win. I like both of these signings for that option. Jaylon Moore, obviously, filling in at left tackle, so far a backup in this league, getting a chance here. I'm really intrigued by that fit and how you see it playing out. What's your initial thoughts on where that role will be?
Yeah, if the 49ers are having a fire sale and letting everybody go, the Chiefs are doing a good job of jumping on the bandwagon. I really like the Jaylon Moore signing for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, I think it's a corner or a left tackle rather that really fits the Chiefs scheme and what they do and everything, so, and he's had good, when he's played, he's had good numbers. There's a lot of reasons to like the signing, and that this is a guy that, once again, is an ascending player and should get better. I mean, your only concern is going to be that, going from a platoon and from a backup to a full-time starter, if that's what he ends up being, will he get exposed? Will teams figure out his weaknesses? But, so thus far in his NFL career, he's been a really solid player. And, whether that his future is on the left or the right or swing, I mean, we'll find out. I don't think the Chiefs are done at this position. I think they're going to continue to try and supplement it with, could be another veteran, could be more young players. But, once the door seemed to close on the Ronnie Stanley possibilities, the Chiefs' focus seemed to move to Jaylon Moore pretty quickly as the guy who would be the most affordable and be the best fit out there. And I think they ended up getting a good deal. I mean, there's just some flexibility here. Worst case scenario, doesn't work out, and yeah, it's pricey. It's 1 year, $21 million, what it could end up being if it's just a 1 year and walk situation. If he's successful and is there for the full 2 seasons, that's a good deal, especially if he can give you starting level caliber, even average left tackle play. And if he works out to something that you want to keep long term, I mean, he's still young enough that that's an option. So, it gives the Chiefs a lot of flexibility, and it doesn't tie them into a player. It doesn't hurt them. It's like I said, I mean, if it's a 1 year, $21 million risk, it's a risk I think was worth taking for Brett Veach.
Yeah, and I think it is a step along the path. That makes perfect sense to me. Whether he becomes a full-time starter or not, we'll see what happens in the draft, et cetera, et cetera. But I hadn't considered that, but I like what you said about possible evolution there becomes a swing situation. And if you have a backup that you feel can be comfortable playing both sides of the ball and being a guy that can come in when necessary, it allows you a little bit more room for growth there as well. So I think at worst case scenario, it gives you that time to buy. When you look at stats, he's right there behind Juwan Taylor in terms of pass pressure rate. And I think that's an important stat to look at, particularly in this offense. That is the number one downfall. Can they run the ball behind him a little bit better than they were this season? My guess is yes, but that's probably icing on the cake. The cake in the run game also comes down to who's carrying the ball. And so to get that done, they go out and get Elijah Mitchell. And I think the potential is there. But this was, in my opinion, a low-level deal, low risk for what could be high reward. But the man missed all of 2024 with a soft tissue injury. That is significant, sometimes hard to recover from. So I do think there is a risk there. But it's low for a guy that could provide that next gear beyond what Isaiah Pacheco can actually bring in practice, if not in timing and testing. So how do you see him fitting into this running back room?
Yeah, you hit it to me, which is that the one thing that the Chiefs have really missed, I think, going back to since Damian Williams left, has been that home run ability in the backfield. And when you don't have that home run ability, it does change the way the defenses play you because they just don't have to worry about the ground game and somebody taking off and putting 75 yards on you. I mean, they're able to attack you downhill a little bit more. And I think that's something that certainly has hurt the Chiefs a little bit. And hey, they've missed it because let's face it. I mean, even if it's not a frequent play, the ability to have that field flipping ability that Damian Williams used to give you of being able to go 75 yards and a score doesn't happen all the time. But right now, the Chiefs can't do that at all. They don't have a running back that's capable of that. So the fact that they do now, I think, certainly helps. This is the electricity. It's the juice in a running back that they've been looking for a little while. Low risk, high reward type signing. This to me feels more like a phase 2 or a phase 3 pickup than phase 1. It's first kind of the first wave of free agency. So I think it's a good deal from that standpoint. But this filled the absolute role that the Chiefs wanted in their backfield, as far as just having someone that's got speed and electricity that can wrap off a big run sometimes and make defenses worry about that. So I think having that mix now that you can pair with Pacheco, if that's the way that it goes into the season, I mean, I think this makes this a better backfield than it was on Sunday.
I like that plan, and that's good enough for me, but it's not enough for this team. There are other moves that have to be made. How and what do they do next? That's coming up right now. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get into it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place your live bets throughout the game, start to finish. Even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can get there. You can stay in the action. And if you want to go looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlay. You got to love that because it's a new aspect. You can just roll it into it. If you're backing your team for a late-game rally or picking up a player who just hit a 3 and you think he's getting really, really hot, you can do that in the app, and it makes it super easy. Right now, our new FanDuel customers are getting $150 in bonus bets if you first get a $5 bet that wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets right now. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the NBA. Folks, make sure you check out Locked On Chiefs. Obviously, you're here already, but there is more to it. There are episodes back and back and back. Check them all out. Get over to Chiefs Digest. Check out NFL 33 and RGR Football and get the Athletic Matrix. There's plenty of it, and the links are all down below in the description, so we appreciate you. Matt, this has been a fun ride and a unique couple of days, at least for the last few years anyway, in terms of activity. But it's also money out the door. And so how did we get to this point? What have we not heard about that is probably going on underneath the water surface?
Yeah, I mean, one, if you look at the Chiefs' own free agents, the ones that they wanted to get taken care of before free agency started, they pretty much all got taken care of. I mean, the 3 priority ones that they definitely wanted to get were to settle the Trey Smith situation, which isn't settled, but being able to place the franchise tag on him, at least, kind of figured out where they're going with that. And I still think that there's going to be a long-term deal done. It might not be until after beginning of spring, so maybe late March, early April, when the kind of free agency all starts to kind of settle down and the Chiefs have a better idea of where they are financially for a year 1 cap number kind of settles in. We might see some progress there. But then, and obviously getting Hollywood, Nick Bolton, those were the other 2 things that they really wanted to get done before free agency. Then their priority in free agency was a left tackle and wanted to get a veteran corner. What else do they want to get in free agency? They'd like to get an edge rusher and a defensive tackle. They still would like to, I think, get another veteran tackle on the offensive side. They may look at wide receiver and adding another veteran there. Not necessarily a high price veteran, but somebody that's going to be more in that number 4, number 5 receiver category because they feel like they've got their top 3, and they're going to be bringing in competition at other spots. But the real question is going to be, with a lot of the Chiefs' own free agents that they're letting test the market. When do they come back after maybe not finding what they want in the market and come back to the Chiefs? And there's going to be some big names that you're talking about there. I mean, are we closing the door completely on a Justin Reed? I mean, you're not closing the door, but if Justin Reed finds a deal that he likes out there, I mean, he'll probably take it. But
Sure.
I think a better player that fits into the market of maybe if they don't find what they're wanting and they come back to the Chiefs, Charles Omenihu is probably kind of, the model for that, because that's a position that the Chiefs, one, they definitely want to fill. Two, Omenihu's a player that they like, would love to have back. There's maybe some others that fit into that might be further down the road, coming back on some 1-year low salary deals. Derek Nottie is probably the poster child for that. Chiefs love Derek Nottie. They'd love to have him back. It's just not a position of luxury that they can afford to pay a lot for. So there might be some other players that fit into that category as well. But, as far as, big investments and maybe if there's splashy signings, and I don't know if there's going to be any, but if they are, I think that's on that defensive line for sure, because that's one area that the Chiefs, even though they've got 3 starters and what they've got, Karlaftis, Danda, and Jones, they need another starting tackle, and they definitely need depth at both those positions.
And that brings me to how this sets up for the draft. I don't see any edge rushers out there that are really going to change much except for providing depth. Obviously, Felix Andico-Uzomah is still on the roster, still progressing. I thought there were times where that moved forward, but haven't seen too much there. So depth at edge in particular, I think, is going to be important, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. The bigger hole is at tackle, as we know right now. But is the model, or in your mind, what should be the model to replicate what the Eagles were able to do against this team? And that is get home with 4, to really beef up that rotation so that you always have 4 guys on the field that can beat someone and get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, you look at the Chiefs' defense last year and what was missing versus the previous 2 seasons. It was pass rush. That was the biggest struggle. I mean, especially when you looked at, the 22 and the 23 seasons when the Chiefs had one of the better defenses in the league. They also had 55 sacks in both those seasons. So that was where they really struggled in 24. So yes, getting after the passer is absolutely a huge priority. And that's why, once again, I mean, they need to beef up both those positions. Especially because you're losing Turk Wharton, who was honestly, I mean, once again, one of your better pass rushers and certainly your second best interior pass rusher. So you don't have that. Can you find an interior pass rusher late in the first round of the draft? I mean, interior pass rushers are even harder to find than edge rushers, and so those guys usually go even faster. And that's where I think that, once again, I mean, the Chiefs, you're probably going to see them invest in both free agency and the draft, because even if they do sign a veteran or 2 along the defensive line, I think they're still going to hit both those positions in the draft. And you're right. I mean, the one area that you probably do have to overpay a little bit for sure in free agency is for pass rushing production. And, I can't really say that there's necessarily an impact pass rusher that the Chiefs can bank on. I mean, anybody that's a 27-year-old dominant pass rusher is locked up. Teams don't let those guys go. But are there guys, in their early 30s that might still have some juice, or, some guys on, prove it deals? I mean, that might be where the Chiefs go. And once again, like a guy like Charles Omenihu, I think could circle back, but there's no doubt. I mean, the Chiefs can't improve their pass rush just by bringing back the crew they had last year, because the crew from last year didn't get it done. They need more than that.
Yeah, and I think they're going to continue to. Last position group that we don't give much, especially with the Bolton signing, it probably needs a little bit of attention in terms of depth beyond the 3 starters. And I do think, because the way the league is going, what we've seen teams try to do against the Chiefs is playing in base is a little bit bigger than it was the year before and the year before that. And I think that we could see that change yet again. For depth in particular, what's the priority for the linebacker crew? Should it be solely draft picks at this point? Should they try to churn what little there is in free agency? How would you like to see them approach it?
Yeah, I know going into the offseason, adding a veteran linebacker was a priority for Brett Veach. But like you said, not necessarily as maybe a starter, but maybe more as that number 4 guy, somebody who can kind of rotate on both sides, both weak side and strong side. If it's somebody that can play some Mike too, I mean, you've got Drew Tranquill, can play all 3 spots and obviously knows the Mike position really well. That's not a priority. So if it's just somebody that can play on the outside, I know a lot of Chiefs fans are wanting Willie Gay back, and I don't know if that's going to happen, but he could be the kind of player that maybe the Chiefs are looking for, maybe a little bit more affordable. I think they would like to, be a position where they maybe save some money. But you're right. I mean, that's a spot where I think they would like to have another backup. But then again, I mean, too, signing Nick Bolton takes a little bit of that out. That might rein you in a little bit from a cost standpoint. Maybe it makes you look towards the draft, because I think you do need to be looking at that linebacker's position as some place where you need over the next 4 seasons to get some affordable production. And that's what your draft picks are sometimes there for. So maybe you do look towards the draft in that direction, especially because, hey, you're not that far away from having to make a decision on Leo Chenal. And, you've got Drew Tranquill, I think, tied up for 2 more years. And that 3rd year might be kind of a walk option year. So you're not necessarily dead set at those starting positions at the linebacker group. You might be ready to, be starting to look for who's going to be your starter in 2026 at one of those spots. So I do think that's a position in free agency. If the Chiefs are going to find somebody, I think it's going to be, more in the category of who is a 4th-year guy that's just hit free agency, who is maybe underperformed or that hasn't quite broken out yet. Maybe somebody who's been honestly, maybe you're looking for your next Zach Vaughn. I mean, somebody who's performed really well on special teams, but just hasn't broken out yet that you can bring in. Chiefs have had, moderate success with those things in the past. I mean, they've brought in guys like Jack Cochran and, obviously, Cole Christensen's another one of those players, and they've got those guys around. But you're also looking for somebody who's got a little bit more defensive impact than those guys have given you.
And that's fair. I certainly am interested to see how it goes. There are a couple of names out there that I do like. We'll talk about that more tomorrow and the next day, folks. But Matt, thank you for giving us your insight and setting us straight on to where we are the first couple of days of free agency. We'll be back with you soon. I appreciate your time.
Can't be soon enough. It's just too crazy this time of year, Ryan. You know how it is.
Every 5 seconds. We'll be all right, folks. Go check out Matt's work over at Chiefs Digest. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you making another Locked On show your next listen. Check out all the other outlets. We appreciate you. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.